Maya Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the last human colony fade from view. The Galactic Council had spoken, and their words still burned in her mind like fire. No more chances, no more warnings. Humanity was done. The great exodus had begun, and she was leading 20,000 souls into the unknown darkness of space. The fleet stretched behind her like silver tears. Against black velvet cargo ships, transport vessels, even old military cruisers filled with everything humans could carry: food, medicine, weapons, tools, children, crying for homes they would never see again. Maya had fought in 3 wars, defended Earth from alien raiders, saved council worlds from pirates, and this was her reward: exile forever. Her communication officer turned toward her with worry in his young face. "Captain, we have an unknown vessel approaching from Sector 7. It appears damaged. The ship design matches Elven technology, but the transponder signal is weak." Maya studied the tactical display. A sleek, organic-looking vessel drifted through space, trailing energy discharge from its engines. The elves rarely ventured this far from their forest worlds, and never alone. She made her decision. "Hail them, and prepare a docking bay if they need help. We provide it, regardless of what the council taught us." The main screen flickered, and an elf woman appeared. Her silver hair was streaked with blue, and her green eyes held the same desperate look Maya had seen in human refugee camps. The elf spoke with a musical accent that could not hide her exhaustion. "I am Luna Nightwhisper, of the Silverleaf Rangers. My ship suffered damage during pursuit by council forces. I seek safe passage to the outer territories." Maya felt something stir in her chest. This elf was also running from the council, also cast out into the void. Luna continued speaking, and her words came faster now. "I was banished for defending human settlements during the border conflicts. The High Council declared me a traitor to Elven purity. They stripped my rank, destroyed my family name, and ordered my death." The bridge fell silent, except for the quiet hum of life support systems. Maya had heard rumors of elves who spoke for humanity during the final council sessions. She had thought them myths, stories told to ease the pain of abandonment. Luna was proof that some beings still believed in justice across species lines. "Permission granted to dock Luna Nightwhisper," Maya said into the communicator. "You are welcome among us as long as you wish to stay. We have medical facilities and engineers who can repair your ship, though I warn you, our destination is uncharted space, beyond all known maps." Luna smiled for the first time since appearing on screen. "That sounds perfect, Captain Rodriguez. I have nowhere else to go, and perhaps together we can find something better than what we left behind." 3 days later, as Luna recovered in the medical bay, her ship underwent repairs. Another damaged vessel appeared on long-range sensors. This one was different. Its crystalline structure pulsed with internal light, and its design belonged to no species. Maya recognized the aliens inside, called themselves Kithara, and their leader was a botanist named Zara Veltarzara. Appeared on the communication screen as a tall, graceful being with skin that shifted between blue and purple depending on the light. Her large, dark eyes reflected intelligence and sadness in equal measure. "Captain Rodriguez, my people were exiled from Council space for developing dangerous terraforming technology. The Council feared our ability to transform dead worlds into garden paradises. They said such power threatened the natural order." Maya listened as Zara explained how the Kith had been peaceful researchers studying how to heal damaged ecosystems and create new worlds for overcrowded species. But the Council saw only the potential for Kithara technology to upset the balance of power to make some worlds more valuable than others. The Kithora were branded as dangerous, and given the choice between imprisonment or exiles, the 3 ships traveled together toward the unknown regions. Maya found herself spending time with both Luna and Zara. They shared meals in the observation lounge, looking out at stars that had never appeared on any council map. Luna told stories of elven forest magic, while Zara described how her people could make plants grow in impossible places. Maya spoke of human determination and the drive to build something better from nothing. The unlikely friendship between the 3 women grew stronger as their fleet moved deeper into unmapped space. Luna used her ranger skills to scout ahead, finding safe passage through asteroid fields. And avoiding energy storms, Zara analyzed every planet they passed, searching for worlds that could support life. Maya coordinated the massive logistics of keeping 20,000 people fed, housed, and hopeful during the long journey. After months of travel, they founded a star system with 7 planets, including 2 that showed signs of water and breathable atmosphere. The council maps labeled this region as dead space, unsuitable for life, but Zara's sensors told a different story: rich soil, abundant minerals, stable weather patterns, perfect for colonization. Maya called the planet Haven Prime, and as their ships descended through the atmosphere, she felt something she had not experienced since leaving Earth. Hoped the sky was purple instead of blue, and 3 moons hung overhead, but the air was clean and the ground was solid. Luna pointed out vast forests in the distance, while Zara identified mineral deposits that could support industry for generations as the first temporary shelters. When up, Maya stood with Luna and Zara, watching human Elvin and Kithra, workers building side by side. If they want us gone, Maya said to her companions, we will show them what exiles can build together. We will make this world into something the council never imagined. Luna placed her hand on Maya's shoulder. And when they come looking for us, they will find we have become stronger than they ever allowed us to. Zara added her voice to theirs. The old maps end here, but our new map begins now. 5 years had passed since the great exile, and Haven Prime was no longer the empty world they had discovered. The capital city of New Haven stretched across the valley floor, combining human steel and concrete with elven living architecture, and Kithra, crystal formations. Buildings grew from the ground like trees, their walls pulsing with gentle light. While human engineering provided the framework that held everything together, Maya walked through the central plaza, where children of 3 species played together. Human kids chased elven youngsters who could run up vertical walls, while Kithra children shifted their skin color to match the rainbow patterns in the crystal fountains. The sight filled Maya with pride and something deeper, the knowledge that they had built something truly new. In the research district, Dr. Chloe Barnes worked alongside Kira Moonstone and Nyx Korthal in laboratories that would have made council scientists weep with envy. Chloe studied how local plants could be modified to provide better nutrition, while Kira designed new tools that combined elven harmony magic with human practicality. Nyx brought her people expertise in biological adaptation to help all 3 species thrive in their new environment. Breakthrough came when Kira discovered how to blend human metal working with elven plant growth techniques. The result was living metal that could repair itself and grow stronger over time. Buildings made from this material could expand when needed and heal damage automatically. Ships built with living metal could survive impacts that would destroy normal vessels. Luna had become more than Maya closest advisor. She had become the bridge between species. Her ranger training helped her understand the needs of the expanding settlements, while her exile experience made her fiercely protective of their new home. She established the Scout Corps, recruiting the best trackers and explorers from all 3 species to map their growing territory. One of these mapping expeditions, Luna team made a discovery that changed everything. In the northern mountains, they found ruins older than any known civilization, massive stone structures covered in symbols that none of their linguists could translate. The buildings were clearly designed for multiple species, with passages sized for beings both large and smalls. Ra led the archaeological expedition to study the ruins. Her terraforming equipment revealed that the area had once been a thriving ecosystem, before some disaster had turned it into barren rock. But the most shocking discovery came when they found the central chamber, a vast room filled with crystal formations that still pulsed with energy. The crystals contained information stored in light patterns that took months to decode. When they finally understood the message, it spoke of an ancient alliance between dozens of species working together to build a galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. The ruins were a warning about the dangers of isolating species and the power that came from unity. As news of the discovery spread throughout the Confederation, Maya realized they were not the first exiles to find strength in diversity. The ancient civilization had thrived for thousands of years before falling to the same narrow thinking that now plagued the Council. Their message was clear: unity was not just an ideal, it was a survival necessity. Meanwhile, the population of Haven Prime continued to grow, not just from natural birth, but from new arrivals. Word had spread throughout the galaxy that there was a place beyond the maps, where outcasts could find acceptance. Ships arrived weekly, carrying refugees from Council persecution, scientists whose research was deemed too dangerous, artists whose work challenged authority, soldiers who refused to fight unjust wars. Maya established the Exile Confederation with a charter that welcomed all beings regardless of species, origin, or past mistakes. The only requirements were willingness to work for the common good and respect for the diversity that made their society strong. Luna became the Confederation's first ambassador, handling diplomatic relations with the growing number of exile groups. Scattered throughout the Outer Territories era, work took on new urgency as she realized her terraforming technology could transform the dead zones surrounding their territory. The Council had marked these areas as uninhabitable, but Zara's sensors revealed rich resources and potential for life. Her floating gardens became the symbol of Confederation power, growing green spaces in the vacuum of space that could be seen from ships approaching the system. The first real test of their military capability came when hostile aliens attacked one of their outer settlements. The Drakmori were reptilian raiders who had been preying on isolated colonies for generations. They expected to find easy victims, but instead faced coordinated resistance from all three species working together: human tactical planning combined with elven stealth and Cathora biological weapons proved devastatingly effective. The raiders were not just defeated, they were captured and offered the choice between exile or integration into Confederation society. Most chose integration, surprised by the mercy shown to enemies. News of the victory spread through both exile and Council territories. The Exile Confederation was no longer a collection of refugees hiding in dead space. They had become a military and economic power, capable of defending their territory and expanding their influence. The old maps that showed empty void where they lived were becoming dangerously outdated. In her private quarters, Maya studied intelligence reports from their agents still operating in Council space. The established governments were struggling with resource shortages, economic instability, and growing unrest among their populations. Meanwhile, the Confederation grew stronger each year, developing new technologies and attracting the best minds from across the galaxy. Luna joined her in the observation room, looking out at the city lights below. "Do you think they regret exiling us?" Luna asked, as she watched ships departing for new settlements. Maya considered the question carefully. "They will regret it soon enough. Our success makes their failures more obvious. Every exile they send us makes us stronger while they grow weaker, but regret and action are different things. The Council has never been good at admitting mistakes." Zara appeared in the doorway, carrying data tablets filled with resource reports and terraforming projections. "The latest surveys show mineral deposits in the 7th system that exceed anything in Council space," she announced. "If we can establish mining operations there, we will control resources they desperately need." The three women stood together, looking out at their thriving civilization. Each knew that their exile had become something the Council never intended. The maps that once showed empty space now concealed the growing power of those who had been cast aside. And in the distance, new ships arrived, carrying more exiles, more outcasts, more fuel for the fire of their expanding Confederation. 10 years after the Great Exile, the Confederation had grown beyond anything Maya had imagined possible. 7 star systems now fell under their protection, housing over 50 million beings from dozens of species. The capital city of New Haven had expanded into a gleaming metropolis that rivaled any Council world while maintaining the harmony Between technology and nature, that had become their signature, the first sign of trouble came through encrypted messages from Admiral Grace Chen Maya, former colleague who had remained with the Earth Defense Force. Grace communications were brief and coded, but their meaning was clear. The Council was facing problems they could not solve alone, and they were beginning to look toward the territories they had once dismissed as worthless. Maya decoded the latest message in her private office while Luna and Zara waited for her analysis. Grace was requesting permission to visit the Confederation officially to discuss trade agreements, but Maya could read between the lines. Her old friend was coming to spy to assess their military capabilities and resource wealth. The Council was finally paying attention to the exiles they had banished. A request posed a diplomatic challenge. Refusing would confirm Council's suspicions that the Confederation had something to hide, while accepting would give potential enemies access to their territories. Maya called a council meeting with the leadership of all 7 systems to discuss their response in the Great Assembly Hall. Representatives from human Elven Kithra and dozens of other species debated the wisdom of allowing Council forces into their space. Some argued for complete isolation, while others saw an opportunity to demonstrate their strength. The discussion continued for hours as each species brought their own perspective to the decision. Luna spoke for the intelligence services, reporting that Council spy networks were already attempting to infiltrate their territory. Vera Starweaver, an elf diplomat who had recently defected from the Council, warned that her former colleagues were desperate enough to attempt military action if diplomatic options failed. The consensus emerged that they would allow Grace to visit, but under carefully controlled conditions. When Grace arrived with a small diplomatic fleet, Maya was shocked by what she saw. Her former colleague had aged badly, the stress of Council politics clearly weighing on her shoulders. Grace's ship was a state-of-the-art Council cruiser, but Maya could see the wear and poor maintenance that spoke of resource shortages and declining capabilities. The formal meeting took place in the Confederation Council chambers, with representatives from all member species present. Grace began with diplomatic pleasantries, but Maya could see the hunger in her eyes as she studied the advanced technology surrounding her. The living metal walls, the crystal data systems, the perfect environmental controls, all represented capabilities the Council lacked. We come seeking mutual cooperation. Grace announced, her words carefully chosen. The Council recognizes that the outer territories have developed significant resources, and we believe trade agreements would benefit both our peoples. Maya translated this correctly. The Council needed their resources and was willing to negotiate from a position of weakness. The negotiations continued for days, with Grace trying to gather intelligence while offering very little in return. She was particularly interested in their terraforming technology and military capabilities, but seemed shocked by the diversity of their population. The Council had convinced itself that multi-species cooperation was impossible, yet here was proof that it not only worked, but created superior results. During a private dinner, Maya confronted Grace directly about the real purpose of her visit. Why are you really here, Grace? The Council never cared about trade with barbarians before. Grace hesitated before answering honestly. Maya, we are facing challenges that require solutions we do not possess. Your people have developed technologies and capabilities that frankly exceed our own. Admission confirmed what Maya had suspected. The Council was no longer the dominant force in galactic politics. Their rigid thinking and species segregation had made them weaker, while the Confederation diversity had made them stronger. Grace continued, there are those in the Council who believe military action might be necessary to secure access to outer territory resources. Maya felt anger rising in her chest, but kept her voice level. Let me make something clear, Grace. Any attempt at military conquest of our territory will result in consequences. The Council cannot imagine we are not the helpless refugees you exiled. We have become something stronger. As Grace prepared to leave, Maya discovered the most disturbing information of all. Through their intelligence networks, they learned that Commander Tess Morgan, a human who had denounced her own species to gain Council Favor was leading a faction advocating for the forcible annexation of Confederation territory. Tess argued that humans in exile posed a long-term threat to galactic stability. Intelligence reports also revealed something else. A mysterious plague was beginning to affect populations in the core worlds. The symptoms were subtle at first, but the disease appeared to target the immune systems of species that had been isolated from genetic diversity for too long. Council medical facilities were baffled by the condition, and their treatments were largely ineffective. Era analysis of the plague data revealed a disturbing pattern. The disease seemed to spread faster in populations that maintained strict species segregation, while multi-species communities showed natural resistance. The ancient ruins on Haven Prime contained references to a similar plague that had devastated previous galactic civilizations. Luna Scout reports confirmed that the plague was spreading rapidly through Council territory, while Confederation worlds remained completely unaffected. The irony was bitter. The same diversity that the Council had condemned as dangerous was now providing protection against a disease that threatened the core worlds. Maya called an emergency session of the Confederation leadership to discuss their response. They had the power to help, but doing so would require revealing the extent of their medical and technological capabilities. Some members argued for allowing the Council to face the consequences of their prejudice, while others insisted that moral obligation required them to offer assistance. The debate was interrupted by urgent communications from multiple sources. Grace was requesting emergency medical assistance, claiming that Earth itself was now showing early signs of plague infection. Vera reported that elf worlds were beginning to experience population decline, while other species were suffering even worse effects. As Maya stood before the assembly, considering their options, she realized they faced their greatest test yet. The council that had cast them out was now dependent on their mercy, but helping would expose them to potential conquest, while refusing would mean watching billions die. The maps no longer showed empty space where they lived, but the old borders of power were shifting in ways no one had anticipated. Luna approached Maya with the latest intelligence reports. The Council is preparing for what they call humanitarian intervention in the outer territories, she said quietly. They plan to occupy our worlds under the pretense of plague prevention, while seizing our medical facilities. Maya looked out at the assembly, where beings from across the galaxy debated the fate of their former oppressors. Then we must decide whether we rule through strength or through the mercy they never showed us. The old maps are gone, Luna. Now we must choose what borders to draw on the new ones. 15 years had passed since the exile, and the plague had become a nightmare that consumed the core world's daily reports reached Maya desk, showing the collapse of entire star systems as the disease spread through populations that had no natural resistance. The council that had once commanded hundreds of worlds now controlled fewer than 50, and their authority crumbled with each passing day. Dr. Amy Foster arrived at Haven Prime in a medical transport ship, so damaged it barely made it through the atmosphere. Her research team had fled from Earth, carrying data about the plague that painted an even more terrifying picture than the Confederation intelligence had suggested. The disease was not random, it was the direct result of genetic isolation, enforced by Council policies for over 2 centuries. In the medical facility that now rivaled anything the core worlds had ever built, Amy worked with Chloe Barnes to analyze the plague data. The results confirmed Zara's earlier theories. Species that had maintained genetic diversity through interbreeding and cultural exchange showed complete immunity, while pure populations faced extinction-level mortality rates. The Council had created their own destruction through the same prejudice that had led to the exile. Amy explained to Maya during their first meeting. We enforced species purity for generations, believing it would make us stronger. Instead, we made ourselves vulnerable to a disease that feeds on genetic uniformity. Your people survived because they embraced what we rejected. Luna brought additional intelligence that revealed the true scope of the crisis. Lydia Goldleaf, one of the High Elf Council members who had originally voted for human exile, was leading a delegation to Haven Prime. The same elf who had called humans a genetic contamination was now begging for sanctuary, as her own people faced extinction. The arrival of Lydia ship created tension throughout New Haven. Elf refugees who had found homes in the Confederation remembered the persecution they had faced, while human families still carried the pain of exile. Luna struggled with her own emotions as she prepared to meet the leader who had branded her a traitor and ordered her death. Maya decided to receive Lydia in the ancient ruins chamber, where the warnings about diversity had been discovered. The symbolism was intentional, and Lydia understood immediately as she entered the room, surrounded by crystal formations that pulsed with the wisdom of a lost civilization. Lydia's appearance shocked those who remembered her from the exile proceedings. The proud elf noble who had once commanded fleets now looked broken and desperate. Her silver hair had turned white, and her green eyes held the haunted look of someone who had watched their world die. She knelt before Maya in a gesture that would have been unthinkable 15 years earlier. "Was wrong," Lydia whispered, her voice barely audible. "We were all wrong, the humans we feared, the diversity we rejected. These were never threats, they were our salvation. I come not as a council member, but as a refugee seeking the mercy I once denied to others." Maya looked down at the kneeling figure, who represented everything they had once fled from. "You voted to exile us because you believed we were dangerous to your way of life," she said quietly. "You were right, we were dangerous to a system built on prejudice and isolation. But we were never dangerous to life itself." The negotiations for sanctuary were complicated by the arrival of another threat. Zix Kerr, Ven, an alien warlord from the Outer Rim, had assembled a massive fleet to exploit the chaos caused by the plague. His forces attacked both Council and Confederation territories, seeing opportunity in the collapse of established authorities. Zix was from a species that had been rejected by the Council centuries earlier, but unlike the Confederation refugees, he had chosen conquest over cooperation. His fleet of raiders and outcasts represented the dark mirror of what the exiles could have become. Their ships were heavily armed, but poorly coordinated. Their crews motivated by greed rather than shared purpose. The first battle took place in the asteroid belt between Haven Prime and the 6th System. Nix led the Confederation defense forces in ships built with living metal and powered by Kithra crystal technology. The enemy fleet was larger, but the Confederation vessels could repair battle damage automatically while coordinating their attacks with precision impossible in traditional fleets. Grace arrived during the battle, leading a small group of Council ships that had defected to the Confederation cause. Her crews were exhausted, and her vessels were outdated, but her tactical experience proved valuable in countering Zix's unconventional attack patterns. The combined fleet achieved victory, but at the cost of revealing their military capabilities to any remaining Council observers. In the aftermath of the battle Maya faced her greatest challenge yet. The Council worlds were evacuating millions of refugees into Confederation territory, while Zix's forces regrouped for another attack. The plague continued to spread through core world populations, while the pressure to share Confederation medical technology grew more intense. Each day Zara had made the breakthrough they needed. Her terraforming technology could purge the plague from entire planets by introducing controlled genetic diversity into the ecosystem. But the process required cooperation between multiple species and the abandonment of the purity policies that had defined Council civilization for centuries. The ancient civilization data revealed the final piece of the puzzle. The plague was not a natural disease, but an artificial creation designed to test galactic societies. Those civilizations that embraced diversity survived and advanced, while those that chose isolation faced extinction. The Council had failed the same test that had destroyed countless civilizations before them. Luna discovered through her intelligence network that the plague had been triggered by the Council's own experiments in genetic purity. Their scientists had been trying to create super soldiers from genetically perfect specimens. The research had accidentally created a biological weapon that targeted the very purity they sought to achieve. As Maya stood in the command center watching evacuation ships arrive from dying worlds, she realized the transformation was complete. The Confederation had become the dominant force in their region of space. Not through conquest, but through the strength that came from unity. The old maps showed the Council controlling hundreds of worlds, but the new reality was different. Grace approached her with the latest reports from Earth. Maya, the situation is beyond desperate. We have perhaps months before complete societal collapse. The Council has officially dissolved, and individual worlds are declaring independence. The old order is finished. Maya looked out at the fleet of refugee ships approaching Haven Prime, carrying the survivors of a civilization that had once considered itself superior. You were right to fear us, Grace, she said quietly. We were dangerous to everything you represented, but we were never your enemies. We were your future. Lydia joined them at the observation window, watching human, elven, and alien children playing together in the refugee processing centers. Those children will inherit a galaxy very different from the one we knew, she said quietly. Perhaps they will be wiser than we were. Sarah appeared with the final terraforming projections in her hands. The purification process is ready, she announced. We can save the core worlds, but only if they accept full integration into the Confederation. The choice is theirs, unity or extinction. Maya nodded as she watched the last Council transport dock at their station. The maps that had once shown their territory as empty space now revealed the truth. The exiles had not just survived, they had become the foundation for a new galactic civilization. And the borders they drew would be based on inclusion rather than the exclusion that had destroyed their predecessors. 20 years after the Great Exile, Maya Rodriguez stood before the assembled representatives of 300 worlds in the Grand Assembly Hall of New Haven. The chamber itself was a symbol of their achievement, combining human engineering with elven artistry and Cathura crystal technology. The walls pulsed with gentle light that responded to the emotions of the speakers, while translation crystals ensured that beings from across the galaxy could understand each other perfectly. The reformed Galactic Alliance had risen from the ashes of the old Council, but its structure was fundamentally different. Rather than species-based representation, each world elected delegates based on merit and vision, rather than genetic heritage. The charter Maya had helped write made diversity a requirement rather than an exception. No world could join unless they demonstrated successful cooperation between multiple species. Luna Nightwhisper sat in the ambassador section, her ranger uniform now bearing the insignia of the interspecies diplomatic corps. The elven clans had undergone their own transformation, abandoning the rigid hierarchy that had dominated their culture for millennia. Young elves now trained alongside humans, and aliens learning that wisdom came from multiple perspectives, rather than ancient traditions. Alonzar of Eltar controlled the most powerful position in the new government. As director of the terraforming initiative, her technology had saved over 100 worlds from the plague, and her floating gardens now orbited every major system in Alliance space. The dead zones that had once separated civilizations were becoming bridges of green life that connected diverse worlds in networks of mutual support. The trial of the former council leaders had concluded the previous month. Maya had insisted on serving as chief judge, despite pressure to delegate the task to others. She wanted the old regime to face judgment from those they had cast aside. Lydia Goldley had been sentenced to exile, working in the rehabilitation centers, where plague survivors learned to live in multi-species communities. The irony was intentional and complete. Commander Tess Morgan had received a harsher sentence for her role in planning the attempted conquest of Confederation territory. She would spend the rest of her life working in the memorial gardens, dedicated to those who died from the plague created by the purity policies she had supported. The gardens were tended by children from dozens of species, working together to nurture life from the soil of Falio. Grace Chen had been appointed as head of the Alliance Defense Force. Her experience and genuine conversion to their cause, making her valuable despite her past. The fleet she commanded was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Ships crewed by mixed species teams using technology that combined the best innovations from hundreds of worlds. Their power came not from superior weapons, but from coordination, impossible in homogeneous forces. The ancient civilization mystery had finally been solved through archaeological work on dozens of worlds. The warnings found in ruins across the galaxy told the same story. Civilizations that embraced diversity advanced to incredible heights before voluntarily abandoning physical existence to explore higher dimensions. Those that chose isolation destroyed themselves through conflict and disease. The pattern had repeated for millions of years. Maya addressed to the assembly focused on the lessons learned from their journey from exile to leadership. We were cast out because we represented change, she said, looking out at the diverse crowd that filled the chamber. We were dangerous to a system built on the assumption that separation meant safety, but separation never brought safety. It only brought stagnation and eventual destruction. The economic transformation had been as dramatic as the political changes. The Alliance controlled resources and technologies that made the old Council economy look primitive. Zara terraforming created new worlds faster than they could be settled, while Luna diplomatic networks facilitated trade relationships that spanned the galaxy. Human adaptability had proven crucial in managing the complex logistics of a truly diverse civilization. Dr. Amy Foster research had not only cured the plague, but had led to medical advances that extended lifespans and enhanced cognitive abilities for all species. The genetic diversity that the Council had feared was producing hybrid vigor on a galactic scale. Children born in the Alliance territories were healthier, smarter, and more creative than any previous generation. The most remarkable change was cultural traditional boundaries between species had blurred as young beings grew up together, sharing ideas and perspectives that their parents could never have imagined. Art, music, literature, and philosophy flourished as different minds approached common problems. Human creativity, elven wisdom, alien logic, and dozens of other approaches combined to produce innovations that no single species could achieve. Alankira Moonstone now led the technology integration department, where teams of mixed species engineers designed everything from household appliances to starship engines. The living metal technology had evolved into buildings that could think and adapt to their inhabitants' needs, while transportation networks used biological computers that grew and improved over time. Next, Korthal commanded the exploration corps that pushed into regions of space never before visited by sentient beings. Their ships carried crews representing every known species, along with volunteers from newly contacted civilizations. The old maps that showed vast empty regions were being filled with discoveries that challenged every assumption about life in the universe. The final session of the Passion Assembly dealt with the question that had haunted Maya for 20 years: what to do with the territories that had once belonged to the Council. Some representatives argued for maintaining the boundaries and simply changing the government, while others proposed complete reorganization based on resource distribution and population needs. Maya proposed a different approach. The old borders had been drawn by fear and prejudice, reflecting the assumption that different species could not coexist peacefully. The new maps should reflect the reality they had created, where identity was based on shared values rather than genetic heritage. Worlds would be grouped by their commitment to diversity and cooperation, rather than by species. Luna supported the proposal with intelligence gathered from across the galaxy, showing that mixed communities consistently outperformed homogeneous settlements in every measurable category: health, education, innovation, economic growth, environmental protection. All showed dramatic improvements when diversity was embraced, rather than merely tolerated. Presented the terraforming data that proved diverse ecosystems were more stable and productive than monocultures. The same principle applied to civilizations, as hybrid cultures showed greater resilience and adaptability than isolated societies. The biological and social evidence pointed toward the same conclusion. Diversity was not just morally right, it was practically superior. The vote was unanimous. The old maps with their rigid borders and species-based territories were officially abandoned. In their place, the Alliance would create fluid regions, based on shared commitment to cooperation and mutual support. Beings could choose their citizenship based on values, rather than genetics and worlds. could join regions that matched their development goals. As the assembly concluded, Maya walked through the memorial plaza, where statues honored those who had died during the plague and the conflicts that followed. The largest statue showed three figures working together: a human, an elf, and an alien, representing the partnership that had transformed exile into triumph. The inscription read simple words that captured their entire journey to those who dared to venture beyond the borders of fear. Luna and Zara joined her at the statue base as the 3 moons of Haven Prime rose over the city lights. The transformation was complete, but Maya knew their work was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there were still civilizations that clung to the old ways of isolation and prejudice. The alliance would continue to grow, offering an alternative to fear-based politics. "You know they will come eventually," Luna said quietly, watching the ships departing for newly settled worlds. "Other civilizations that have not learned the lessons we discovered. They will see our success and either seek to join us or destroy." Maya nodded, but felt no fear about the future. "We are no longer the refugees they exiled into empty space. We have become something they cannot understand or defeat. We have redrawn the maps of possibility itself. The borders we crossed led us home." Zara pointed toward the stars where Alliance ships carried their message of unity to distant worlds. "The old maps showed empty void where we built our civilization, but the new maps will show something different. The space between worlds is not empty. It is filled with potential waiting for those brave enough to embrace it." The 3 women stood together, watching their ships disappear into the darkness, carrying hope to civilizations that had not yet learned the power of diversity. The galaxy was vast, but the Alliance had time and patience, and the knowledge that had been written in ruins. Across 100 worlds, unity was not just an ideal, it was the key to survival itself. The maps had been redrawn, and the borders they showed led not to exile but to the stars themselves.